London, 1856. The clock struck midnight as Helena Richardson stood in the Duke of Quellton's study, her heart pounding against her corset. The moonlight cast long shadows across the polished walnut desk that stood between them, illuminating the Duke's aristocratic features, his sharp jawline and those piercing grey eyes that had followed her throughout the evening's ball. "Miss Richardson," said Lord Alexander Quellton, his voice low and measured, "I have summoned you at this unconventional hour because matters of great importance cannot wait for propriety's sake." Helena smoothed her emerald silk gown, a luxury she could scarcely afford on a governess's salary. "Your Grace, I must confess this meeting is most irregular." "Indeed?" He circled his desk with the casual confidence of a man who had never been denied anything in his 32 years. "But I find myself in a position where irregularity is necessary." She watched him carefully. The Duke of Quellton was not known for impulsive behavior. His reputation as a calculating, shrewd nobleman preceded him in every drawing-room from Mayfair to Kent. His unexpected invitation to his private study at such an hour had set the tongues of the dowagers wagging below, and Helena knew her reputation hung by the thinnest of threads. "Miss Richardson, I shall speak plainly." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "I wish to offer you my hand in marriage." Helena's breath caught. Of all the things she had imagined he might say, a proposal of marriage had not been among them. She was a governess to his young cousin, nothing more than an employee in his household, a woman with no title, no dowry, and a past shrouded in whispers. "Your Grace, before you answer," he interrupted, "you should know my proposition is not entirely born of romantic inclination. My estate requires the immediate injection of funds that only marriage to an heiress could provide. The irony that you possess nothing of value in society's eyes is not lost on me." Helena stiffened. "Then I fail to understand your father's debts," he said simply. "I've purchased them all." The blood drained from Helena's face. Her father, once a respected merchant, had died 3 years prior, leaving nothing but mountains of debt and a tarnished family name. She had taken the position as governess to survive, to slowly rebuild some semblance of respectability. "You see," he continued, "I require a wife who understands discretion, who has known both privilege and its absence. Someone intelligent enough to manage a duchess's responsibilities yet pragmatic enough to recognize an advantageous arrangement when presented with one." "You mean to blackmail me into marriage?" Her voice was soft but steady. The Duke's expression hardened. "I prefer to think of it as rescuing 2 sinking ships with 1 mooring line. Your reputation would be restored, your father's debts forgiven. My estate would benefit from your connections to the merchant classes, whose investments I sorely need." "What connections?" "My father's associates shunned us after his death." "Not all of them. Your godfather, Sir Thomas Perry, still holds considerable influence among London's financial circles. A connection I could exploit to mutual benefit." Helena's mind raced. Marriage to a duke would elevate her beyond her wildest dreams, would wash away the stain of her father's financial ruin. Yet the cold calculation in Lord Quellton's eyes spoke of a business transaction, not a marriage. "And if I refuse?" she asked. "Then tomorrow, your father's creditors will receive notice that his debts have been acquired by a new party, one who expects immediate payment in full." His voice remained even, emotionless. "I imagine you would need to seek employment elsewhere, perhaps in the colonies. Governesses are always needed in India, I hear." The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly in the silence that followed. Outside, the sounds of the ball continued, oblivious to the life-altering conversation taking place above. "You require my answer now?" Helena asked, her voice barely audible. "By dawn," he replied. "I have business in Parliament tomorrow that cannot wait." Helena gathered her courage, years of hidden strength rising to the surface. "Then my answer is no, Your Grace." The Duke's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. No one refused the Duke of Quellton, least of all a penniless governess with everything to gain. "Perhaps you misunderstood." "I understood perfectly," Helena interrupted. "You offer me a cage gilded with the finest gold, but a cage nonetheless. I may be reduced to earning my bread, but I will not sell my soul for financial security. Publish my father's debts. I shall face the consequences as I have faced every other hardship, with dignity. With that, she turned toward the door, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain he must hear it. Her hand trembled on the doorknob as she waited for his command to stop, for some outburst of aristocratic fury. Instead, she heard a soft laugh, not mocking, but something else entirely. Something that sounded almost like respect. "Miss Richardson," he called, his tone markedly different, "it appears I have gravely misjudged you. Please, before you depart, allow me one question." She paused but did not turn. "Yes, Your Grace." "What would you have said had I proposed from genuine affection rather than pragmatism?" The question hung in the air between them. Helena slowly turned to face him, studying his expression for any sign of mockery. She found none. "I would have asked what you knew of me to inspire such affection," she answered honestly. For a marriage should be built on understanding, not merely convenience or fleeting passion. For the first time that evening, a genuine smile crossed the Duke's face, transforming his severe features into something remarkably handsome. "A fair response," he said. "Perhaps we might begin again. Not with proposals or business arrangements, but with that understanding you speak of." "I'm afraid that's impossible now," Helena replied. "You've shown me the workings of your mind, Your Grace. Some revelations cannot be undone." With that, she left the study, closing the door softly behind her. As she made her way back to her modest quarters in the East Wing, Helena wondered if she had just committed the greatest folly of her life, or perhaps, its wisest decision. The following morning, Helena expected to find her dismissal notice waiting. Instead, a sealed letter arrived from the Duke, containing not threats but a formal apology and the cancelled notes of her father's debts, marked paid in full. No explanation accompanied the gesture, leaving Helena bewildered as she prepared young Lady Margaret for her morning lessons. The child was unusually quiet, her 10-year-old face pensive. "Miss Richardson," Margaret finally said as they reviewed French conjugations, "is it true you're to marry cousin Alexander?" Helena nearly dropped her book. "Certainly not. Who ever gave you such an idea?" "I heard the servants talking. They said he summoned you to his study at midnight, and everyone knows what that means." The girl's innocent recitation of servants' gossip made Helena's cheeks burn. "Lady Margaret, it is most improper to repeat such things." "But if you married him, you'd be a duchess," Margaret continued, undeterred. "And duchesses don't have to learn French conjugations." Despite her distress, Helena laughed. "Is that why you're suggesting this match?" "To escape your lessons." Before Margaret could reply, the door opened to reveal Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, her typically severe expression even more pronounced. "Miss Richardson, her ladyship requests your immediate presence in the blue drawing-room." Helena's stomach tightened. The Dowager Duchess of Quellton, Alexander's formidable mother, was not known for her warmth, particularly toward staff. If she had heard rumors of the midnight meeting. "Of course," Helena replied, smoothing her plain grey dress. "Lady Margaret, please continue with page 42 until I return." The blue drawing-room, with its silk damask walls and gilt furnishings, made Helena acutely aware of her station as she was announced. The Dowager Duchess sat like a queen holding court, her silver-streaked dark hair arranged impeccably beneath a lace cap, her black mourning dress a reminder of her widowhood even 15 years after the late Duke's passing. "Miss Richardson," she said, not bothering to rise. "I understand you had a private audience with my son last night." Direct and merciless, exactly as Helena had feared. "Your ladyship, I assure you, spare me your assurances," the older woman interrupted. "Alexander has already informed me of his imprudent marriage proposal and your subsequent refusal." Helena blinked in surprise. Why would the Duke admit such a thing to his mother? "What concerns me," the Dowager continued, "is not that he proposed, but that you refused." A governess refusing a duke! It's unprecedented. "I had my reasons, your ladyship." "Yes, I'm sure you did." The Dowager's piercing gaze, so like her son's, seemed to strip away Helena's defenses. Reasons perhaps relating to the Thornfield scandal. Helena's blood ran cold. No one in London was supposed to know about that. She had been so careful. "I see I've touched a nerve," the dowager observed. "Did you imagine the family of a duke would not investigate thoroughly before allowing someone to educate our children? We've known about your involvement in the Thornfield affair since before you were hired." "Then why employ me at all?" Helena managed. "Because, Miss Richardson, unlike the gossips of society, I recognized that you were the victim in that situation, not the villain." The dowager's voice softened marginally. "Lord Thornfield's attempt to compromise you and then abandon you when your father could not pay the promised dowry showed his character, not yours." Helena fought to maintain her composure. "If you knew, then surely the Duke, my son, knows nothing of it," the dowager said sharply. "I protected your privacy, as I would for any woman unjustly maligned. However, I now find myself in an unusual position. My son, who has rejected countless eligible heiresses, has apparently developed a tendre for you, a penniless governess with a scandal in her past." "His Grace made it quite clear his proposal was a business arrangement," Helena said carefully. The dowager's laugh was dry as autumn leaves. "And you believed him?" "My dear, Alexander is many things, stubborn, proud, occasionally arrogant, but he is not a liar. If he claimed the proposal was merely financial, it was because he feared rejection based on his true feelings." Helena couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Surely you're not suggesting—" "I am not suggesting, I am stating plainly, my son has developed an attachment to you. An inconvenient one, from a dynastic perspective, but nonetheless genuine. Your ladyship, even if what you say is true, it changes nothing. I cannot accept a proposal founded on manipulation and threats." The Dowager Duchess studied Helena for a long moment. "No, I suppose you cannot. Integrity is a rare quality these days, particularly when tested by temptation." She reached for a small bell on the table beside her and rang it once. "You may return to your duties, Miss Richardson. But remember this conversation." Helena curtsied and turned to leave, her mind whirling with confusion. "Oh, and Miss Richardson," the dowager called after her. "The annual garden party is this Saturday. I shall expect you to attend not as staff, but as my guest." The garden party of Quellton House was the social event of the early summer season. Held on the expansive south lawns, with their famous rose gardens in full bloom, it attracted the cream of society, politicians, foreign dignitaries, and the aristocracy in their finest attire. Helena, dressed in a borrowed gown of pale blue silk that the dowager had mysteriously provided, "It no longer fits my niece, and the color would be most becoming on you," stood awkwardly at the periphery of the gathering. As neither a true guest nor a servant on duty, she occupied an uncomfortable middle ground that left her exposed to curious glances and whispered comments. "Miss Richardson, isn't it?" A smooth voice drew her attention. "We met briefly at Lady Harwood's musical evening last season." Helena turned to find herself facing Lord Edmund Talbot, a handsome widower known for his charm and considerable fortune. His presence at her side immediately drew attention from nearby guests. "Lord Talbot, yes, I recall," she replied, though in truth, she had only seen him from afar. "I understand you're governess to Lady Margaret," he continued. "How fortunate she is to have such an accomplished teacher. I've been considering a governess for my own daughters." Helena recognized the conversational gambit for what it was, an excuse to speak with her, but played along. "Lady Margaret is a delightful student." "How old are your daughters, my lord?" Their conversation continued pleasantly, with Lord Talbot showing genuine interest in her educational philosophies. Helena gradually relaxed, almost forgetting her unusual position at the gathering, until a shadow fell across them. "Talbot," came the Duke's unmistakable voice, cooler than Helena had ever heard it. "I see you've met Miss Richardson." "Quellton," Lord Talbot nodded, seemingly unperturbed by the Duke's frigid tone. "Indeed I have. She's been enlightening me on modern educational approaches." "Most fascinating." "I'm sure," the Duke replied. "However, Miss Richardson promised me this dance." Helena started to protest. No such promise had been made, but the Duke's hand was already at her elbow, guiding her firmly toward the area where couples were forming for a country dance on the lawn. Your Grace, she hissed as they took their positions, this is most improper. More improper than your midnight visit to my study, he countered, though without malice. Besides, my mother has designated you her guest today. You are, for all intents and purposes, a lady of quality at this gathering. The music began, forcing them to separate for the opening movements of the dance. When they came together again, Helena noticed the Duke's expression had softened. I owe you an apology, Miss Richardson, he said as they circled each other. My approach that night was unworthy of both of us. Then why did you choose it? She asked, genuinely curious. Because, he replied, I am unaccustomed to vulnerability. Transactions and negotiations are safer territory than matters of the heart. The dance separated them again before she could respond. When they rejoined, Helena found her courage. Are you suggesting there were matters of the heart involved, Your Grace? His eyes met hers, startlingly direct. I am suggesting that I have watched you these past 6 months, your patience with Margaret, your dignity despite reduced circumstances, your quiet intelligence that surpasses most of the diamond-draped ladies here, and found myself increasingly drawn to qualities I never thought to seek in a wife. Helena nearly missed a step. Yet you spoke of debts and business arrangements. Because I feared you would laugh if I spoke of admiration and regard. The music brought them palm to palm, their fingers touching briefly. A duke is taught from the cradle that weakness is unacceptable, that sentiment is a luxury afforded to lesser men. Pride is a poor foundation for happiness, Your Grace. Alexander, he corrected. After our midnight encounter, I believe you've earned the right to my given name, at least in private. Before Helena could reply, the dance ended, and they were required to bow and curtsy to each other. As they left the dance area, Helena was acutely aware of the stares and whispers following them. Her brief moment of belonging shattered as she overheard a matron's cutting remark, a governess dancing with the Duke. Lady Quellton must be desperate indeed to promote such an inappropriate match. Alexander must have heard it too, for his jaw tightened. Before he could respond, however, a commotion near the refreshment tables drew everyone's attention. A tall, elegantly dressed man had arrived, his distinctive auburn hair and confident bearing immediately recognizable to Helena. Lord James Thornfield, the man whose false courtship and subsequent abandonment had destroyed her reputation 3 years ago, was scanning the crowd, his gaze eventually landing on her with a look of surprise that quickly transformed into calculated interest. Miss Richardson, he called, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. What an unexpected pleasure. Last I heard, you had gone to the country for your health. The malicious emphasis on the last word made his implication clear, that she had been sent away due to a scandalous pregnancy, the favorite rumor he had helped spread after their broken engagement. Helena felt the ground shift beneath her. All the security and status she had carefully rebuilt over the past years threatened to crumble in an instant. She glanced at Alexander, expecting to see disgust or at least confusion on his face. Instead, she saw fury, cold, controlled, and directed entirely at Thornfield. Lord Thornfield, Alexander said, his voice carrying clearly across the sudden hush. I was unaware you had been invited to Quellton House today. Thornfield's smile didn't waver. The invitation came from Lady Harwood, I believe. A mutual friend. How unfortunate that Lady Harwood overstepped her bounds, Alexander replied. My guest lists are not open to amendment, particularly not to include men who slander ladies under my protection. The whispers around them intensified. Helena wanted nothing more than to flee, but Alexander's hand on her arm kept her firmly at his side. I've slandered no one, Thornfield protested, though his confidence showed the first signs of cracking. Merely expressed surprise at seeing an old acquaintance. Is that what you call it? The Dowager Duchess's voice cut through the tension as she approached, her expression regal in its disdain. I call it the desperate attempt of a bankrupt libertine to distract from his own disgrace by reviving old lies. Thornfield paled. Your ladyship, I assure you, save your assurances for your creditors, Lord Thornfield, the Dowager continued mercilessly. I understand they grow quite impatient. Now, I suggest you take your leave before my son decides that your insult to Miss Richardson requires more direct address. The threat of a duel hung in the air. Thornfield, assessing the situation, apparently decided retreat was his only option. With a stiff bow, he backed away, quickly making for the garden exit. The dowager turned to the gawking crowd. The musicians seemed to have paused. "Let us have the waltz now, shall we? Lady Harwood, I believe Lord Pembroke was seeking you for this dance." Her commanding tone broke the tableau, sending guests scrambling to find partners as the orchestra struck up a waltz. Alexander, still holding Helena's arm, led her away from the curious onlookers toward a secluded alcove in the rose garden. "Are you well?" he asked quietly once they were alone. Helena's composure finally broke. "How can I be? Everything I've worked to rebuild has just been destroyed. Again." "Nothing has been destroyed," Alexander said firmly. "If anything, Thornfield has destroyed himself. My mother's public acknowledgement of his financial ruin will be all over London by nightfall. But the rumors about me will die when confronted with the truth," he finished. "And the truth, Helena, is that you are the woman I intend to marry." She stared at him in disbelief. "After this scene? Your Grace, Alexander, you cannot possibly still wish to align yourself with such scandal." "I don't care about scandal," he said, taking her hands in his. "I care about you. These past weeks since you refused me have been enlightening." "I've never been rejected before," he admitted with a wry smile. "It proved remarkably clarifying." "Clarifying how?" Helena asked, still uncertain. "It made me examine my true motivations. Yes, the estate needs funds, but there are a dozen heiresses I could have chosen. I approached you because I wanted you, and the financial excuse was safer than admitting I, the Duke of Quellton, had fallen in love with a governess." Helena's breath caught. "You speak of love now, but a fortnight ago you threatened me with my father's debts." "A shameful tactic born of fear," he acknowledged. "Fear that you would refuse me for more conventional suitors if given time." "What conventional suitors?" "I am a governess with a questionable reputation. You are the daughter of a gentleman, educated, beautiful, and possessed of more character than the entire peerage combined." His eyes held hers steadily. "As for suitors, did you think Lord Talbot's interest today was coincidental? Half the unmarried men at this gathering have asked my mother about you since you arrived." Helena shook her head in disbelief. "This makes no sense." "Love rarely does," Alexander replied. "But I am not proposing from love alone. I admire you, Helena. Your strength, your integrity, qualities I discovered fully only when you stood in my study and refused to be coerced, even at great personal cost." He dropped to one knee before her, still holding her hands. "I ask you again, not at midnight in my study with threats and bargains, but here in the daylight among the roses, Helena Richardson, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Helena looked down at him, this proud, complicated man who had shown both his worst and best sides to her. "The scandal will be forgotten the moment you become a duchess," he assured her. "Society has a conveniently short memory when it comes to titles. Your mother engineered this entire garden party specifically to introduce you to society as a prospective duchess, not a governess. The gown, your invitation as her guest, surely you didn't think those were coincidental?" Helena's mind reeled. "She planned this." "My mother is a formidable strategist," Alexander said with a smile. "She recognized what I felt before I did. Now, you're avoiding my question, Miss Richardson." Helena took a deep breath. 6 months ago, she had been a disgraced merchant's daughter working as a governess to survive. Now she stood in a duke's rose garden with a proposal that would elevate her beyond her wildest dreams. Yet it wasn't the title or wealth that tempted her, it was the man himself, flawed and proud but capable of growth and genuine feeling. "Yes," she said finally. "Yes, Alexander, I will marry you, but on one condition." He raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "That we both acknowledge this marriage as one of equals. You may have the title, but I refuse to be merely an ornament or a solution to financial troubles." Alexander stood, still holding her hands. "I would have it no other way. Your mind is as valuable to me as your heart. He hesitated, then added, there is one more thing you should know. Your father's debts, they are truly forgiven, regardless of your answer. I had them cancelled the morning after you refused me. Helena's eyes widened. Why would you do that? Because you were right to refuse me as I was, he said simply. I needed to be worthy of you, not the other way around. In the distance, the music continued to play, but in their secluded corner of the garden, a different kind of harmony had been established, one that would eventually blend two disparate lives into something neither had imagined possible. That fateful midnight when a duke asked for a governess's hand, and her refusal changed both their destinies forever. As Alexander drew her into his arms for their first kiss, Helena knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, society's gossip, the responsibilities of a duchess, the complexity of love itself, they would face them together, with the courage and integrity that had brought them to this moment among the roses.